But first, I want to note for the record that we invited Representative Ilhan Omar to this hearing. We left her 2 voicemails at the end of March. We've written 2 letters, one on March 13th and one on March 30th. We also sent an invite on April 15th via her scheduling portal, and we have not had any response. And I do think it's very important to this discussion, and so I'm just going to reference why I wanted to bring her into this conversation, and I know my friends on the other side of the aisle are curious, but so there's a lot of talk in a lot of these reports about how the Feeding Our Future happened because guardrails were taken off the federal school nutrition program. And that is absolutely true, and the first time that happened was in March of 2020, and it was, sorry, I'm looking for the name of the law, but it was in the Families First Coronavirus Pandemic Relief Act, passed in March of 2020.
Robbins just went off, calling out Ilhan Omar for skipping the Somali fraud hearing, and honestly, the way she put it was sharp enough to cut glass and maybe even rearrange the room a little. As she basically said, you can't be missing in action and still expect a front row seat in the accountability conversation. And yeah, that one didn't need a mic drop. It dropped itself.
And one of the elements of that bill was something called the Meals Act, which was Representative Ilhan Omar's actual bill that she got incorporated into this larger coronavirus package. And that Meals Act is what took the guardrails down on eligibility, on using the meals no longer had to be consumed on site. They could be for a group, not for an individual. And so the Meals Act really is what loosened the guardrails on the whole federal nutrition program that led to the scandal we have seen that we now call Feeding Our Future, but was actually much broader than that. And these are serious questions that I actually have for her and her staff, and I will send a follow-up letter after this hearing because I hope that they will respond, because it really does matter for understanding how we got here. And so because she did not respond, I thought it would be good to play a video where she, in her own words, is talking about the Meals Act. And so in lieu of her testimony, we're going to hear from Representative Omar herself from a video that she recorded for Somali TV, and it will have subtitles so we can all understand it. And that was from the spring of 2020. You can play the video. Can you turn it up?
oo ciyaal iskuuley waxay cuntadooda ka helaan iskoolka kaliya marka waxaan fursad u helnay in aan sharci soo gudbino oo la dhahayo Meals Act oo u fududeynayo in waqtigaanay pandemic aan ku jirno oo dhalinyarada iskoolka aynan joogin oo guryahooda ay joogaan aynan gaajoonin oo familkoodii wili ay fursad u helaan in cunto ay helaan oo meelo qaarkood laga qaybinayo ay cuntada ka soo qaadan karaan marka aadaan ugu mahad celinayaa safari in ay tahay meelaha city oo diyaarinooyo cunto maalin kasto dhalinyarada ciyaalkii iyo familkoodina ku taakuleynaayo cuntada city maalintii kaliyo safari waxay ay cunto siisaa 2300 oo ciyaal ah iyo familkooda taas waa mid muhiim ah sida aad u ogtihiin dhalinyaro badan gaajo ku nool wadankaaniti ama familkooda fursad u helin in quraac qada iyo casho ay siiso marka in qadadaasaytii ay meel ka helaan aaday u muhiimsan tahay bishaan ramadaanka oo familiyaalkeena badan iyagoo aan shaqo haysanin iyagoo aan taakulayn kale helaynin in aynan ka walwalin ciyaalkooda yaryar sidii ay qada ku siin lahaayeen waa muhiim marka waxaan u mahad celinayaa safari oo kaleete.
Thank you. So as you saw in the video, she talks about using the Meals Act as a way to make it easier for families to get access to food during the pandemic. And I do plan to follow up with her staff or her directly if she would provide testimony on the record or in a written response about, you know, why she brought that, how that actually materially affected the ability of restaurants like Safari, where this video was filmed, which was the #1 meal site sponsor and all of the Feeding Our Future site sponsors, they got $12 million, and they were later indicted. So I think understanding her role in this is very important for the history of understanding this case. And with that, I'll leave it at that.
Madam Chair, just a quick question about that.
Yes, Lead Pinto.
So I saw Congressman Stauber voted for that bill as well. Are you planning to bring him in as well, Madam Chair?
He wasn't the author of the bill.
Okay.
So I think she was the author of the bill, and she brought that to this larger coronavirus relief package. And so I think understanding her intention and her communication with MDE over that issue and with the Department of Agriculture and the feds, I think there's still many unanswered questions about that. So I look forward to following up with her office on that.
And Madam Chair, just quickly, I had the sense from looking at the video that her intention, it seemed pretty clear, which was to make sure that the kids are fed. I don't know if there's sort of more detail you're looking for in particular beyond that, but that seemed sort of clear to me, but I guess we'll see if she's got more to say regarding that.
Absolutely. So, yeah. And I do think that was at least her stated intention in the video, but the video was filmed at Safari Restaurant, which was now charged and convicted for participating in the fraud. And at the time in the video, she references 2,300 meals a day. They eventually got to, I believe, 6,000 or 7,000 meals a day, which defies understanding. And so they were clearly involved with her and her promoting Safari from the beginning. And I think understanding that relationship is part of understanding the larger context of how this happened in Minnesota specifically. Other states didn't see the level of nutrition fraud that we did. And so I do look forward to exploring that question. I think it's important for the history of understanding the larger context.
Now, look, I want to be fair here. There's a lot going on in this hearing beyond the headlines. So instead of reacting emotionally, let's actually walk through what's being said and what it means. And if you find these breakdowns helpful, where we slow things down and actually explain what's happening in plain English, go ahead and subscribe to Congress Showdown. Let's get into it. So, the starting point here is pretty simple. Lawmakers say Ilhan Omar was invited to the hearing multiple times, voicemails, letters in March, and even a formal invite in April. But according to the record presented, she didn't appear. That already sets the tone for the hearing, because now the discussion continues without her direct input. From there, the focus shifts to the Feeding Our Future investigation, which is tied to alleged fraud involving federal meal programs during the COVID period. And the big question being raised is this: did policy changes during the pandemic make the system easier to exploit? Okay, let's slow this down a bit. The argument being made is that emergency changes to federal nutrition programs removed certain safeguards. Things like strict on-site meal requirements or tighter tracking rules were relaxed so food could reach more people during lockdowns. And honestly, that part makes sense in context. When you're in a crisis, you simplify systems so they can move faster. But here's where the debate gets more complicated. The chair links those changes to legislation passed during COVID and specifically brings up something called the Meals Act, which she attributes to Ilhan Omar. Now, this is where things get politically sensitive, because the claim isn't just about policy, it's about responsibility for downstream effects. And that's where I think we need to be careful. Because even if a policy changes the rules, it doesn't automatically explain every abuse that happens later. Bad actors don't need perfect systems, they just need openings, and sometimes they find them even in well-intentioned programs. Now, a video of Omar from 2020 is played where she talks about expanding food access during the pandemic, and if you just listen to that clip on its own, the intention sounds straightforward: get food to people faster during an emergency. Most people would probably agree with that goal. But here's the real tension in this whole hearing. Was the problem the intent or the lack of guardrails once the policy was in motion? Because those are two very different conversations. One is about motivation. The other is about execution. And in government, execution is usually where things break down. If you're following this so far, take a second and hit the like button. It actually helps push these kinds of policy breakdowns to more people who want context, not just headlines. Here's the issue that keeps sticking out to me. If every policy decision is judged only by what bad actors later do with it, then no emergency system would ever move fast again. But on the flip side, if we ignore outcomes entirely, then accountability starts to disappear. And that balance, that tension between speed and oversight is exactly what this hearing is wrestling with. At the end of the day, emergency policy is a bit like opening the doors wide during a storm. You do it so people can get inside quickly, not so someone turns it into a shortcut for chaos. And when the storm passes, the real question becomes, did we just build faster access, or did we forget to lock the door afterward?